If I didn't say these things, you wouldn't know what I think that I know. And without that, I can't learn any of the things I want to learn.
This is I Don't Even Own a Television. Illusions, the adventures of a reluctant messiah.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television, a podcast about bad books. I am J.W. Friedman.
And I am Chris Collision.
And today we're talking about a book by Richard Bach, noted author of Jonathan Livingston Seagull. But this isn't that book. It's the follow-up. And it's entitled Illusions, the Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah.
And, you know, the only good thing about that title is that, you know, you're reading it and you're like, oh, thank God, because there's no chance this guy is enough of a tool that subtitle refers to the author, does it?
Oh, it does. It does in a major way.
Oh, dear God.
And I think before we say anything else about the book, let's read the foreword, because this sums up a lot. It was a question I heard more than once after Jonathan Seagull was published. What are you going to write next, Richard? After Jonathan? What? I answered then that I didn't have to write anything next, not a word, and that all my books together said everything that I had asked them to say. Having starved a while, the car repossessed, and that sort of thing, it was fun to not have to work to midnights. Still, every summer or so I took my antique biplane out into the green meadow seas of Midwest America, flew passengers for $3 rides, and began to feel an old tension again. There was something left to say, and I hadn't said it. I do not enjoy writing at all. If I could turn my back on an idea out there in the dark, if I can avoid opening the door to it, I won't even reach for a pencil. I'm just going to stop there. But
right.
Yeah, I think that informs a lot about this book. And before we even get into plot in 60 seconds, I just think it's important to point out that the writer right up front says he didn't want to write this and he does not enjoy writing.
And it really, really comes through because as we'll see, I think throughout, the word that you would describe this book with is lazy. It's very, very short, not to get into high points.
Hooray!
It's very, very short. There's a lot of advice in it that are pieces of advice in it that are presented as poetry. They're set like poetry. A lot of indents. They're in a different font. All this stuff, but there's nothing poetic about it. It's bumper sticker level language. It's motivational poster level language.
It is. I mean, it's literally bumper stickers, but formatted like Ezra Pound.
Yeah.
And it's really irritating.
And it helps pad out the book. I'll say that.
I mean, before you even get to the actual narrative in this book, you get about 30 pages of handwritten nonsense. That
is true. This actually might segue nicely into plot in 60.
All right, yeah, let's not jump too far ahead. Let's do a song. Nobody knows if you waited or not. You got 60 seconds to give us the plot. Plot in 60 seconds. Yeah, plot in 60 seconds. All right, 60 seconds are what you have to summarize this book. Are you ready?
I think so. I think that I just hope the universe is ready for me.
All right, well, let's begin.
We begin with 33 numbered paragraphs telling the story of a mechanic who becomes a messiah, preaching the gospel of chilling out and letting the universe do its groovy thing.
Man.
Eventually his followers become a hassle, and he pieces out and quits as messiah. Then we meet our narrator, Richard, a retired author who's barnstorming around the Midwest. He's giving people rides in his biplane. He instantly meets a guy named Donald Shimoda, who's doing the same thing. Shockingly, Donald is described as sexy karate Jesus, and the two men become good friends very, very quickly. Donald, shockingly, is the retired messiah, and he teaches Richard that all the world is but an illusion, and that all that afflicts us is in our own head. Donald's airplane flies with no gas. Donald can walk on water and swim through the earth. They go see Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. That's what passes for plot.
5 seconds.
Shit. Donald appears on a radio show, pisses off the locals, and gets shot. Richard decides to write a book.
Oden. Wait, so
I didn't quite make it.
Did you say the main character's name in this book is Richard? And he flies a biplane, and he's an author?
I did. And would it shock you to know that the very last words of the book are, perhaps I should write a book, and that immediately following that are the first words of this book.
Whoa, recursive.
Yeah. So we're back to that thing that is a hallmark of really, really good books, where in the book you're reading is described a book that'll change your life, comma, that's the book you're reading.
It's good. It's like when you listen to a song and someone tells you that they sat down to write this song. Man, nothing puts you more in the moment than that.
Yeah. So this is a very, very simple plot, right? Literally the only things that happen, they fly around, they talk to each other a lot, they go see Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The dog freaks out.
He's just shaking it off.
He's just shaking it off. And then, as I said, Donald Shimoda goes on the radio. He pisses people off. One comes and assassinates him because this is a thinly veiled version of Cool Hand Luke, I guess.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like that.
Cool Hand Luke, but even more overtly spiritual. It's less about subtext and just more about splatting it out there with a paint roller. Like, oh man, I have so many thoughts about this book. Maybe we should do some high points, low points.
I think I'm ready. I could do a high one. You want to start with a high one, or should I?
I do.
Okay. Oh,
Heston, come on, dude. You're being a little too active right now.
oh, is this something about my bag? He was sniffing on it earlier. I don't know.
It's probably coffee or something.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it's nothing important. I just kind of...
Yeah.
I don't mind if he's clomping around, but when he runs into the mic stands...
Yeah, no, I hear.
Okay, so high points, low points. All right. I do have a high point. It's
Cool.
one we alluded to earlier. This book is short. It's so short. I believe it's 128 pages.
I think that's about right. And these are short pages too, because a lot of them have that like weird poetry section. The 33 numbered paragraphs are about 45 sentences at the beginning of the book, and it's like 3 paragraphs per page. So yeah, definitely thin.
Yeah. So that's a simplistic and easy high point, but it's probably the number one high point for me with this book, so I went for it. How about you?
I actually liked that parts of it were just nuts. I keep talking about when they go see Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and that's because it goes on for something like 15 pages of Guru Jesus Donald riffing on it, and it makes zero sense. But at some point it kind of turns the corner, and he's got this image of lives and universes being like spools of film, and you're holding them in your hand and they're complete unto themselves, but you have to experience them linearly. And movies are definitely an illusion because it's your brain filling in the motion and stuff, and it almost comes together for a second. And then it gets even crazier, and he doubles down again because like, but of course you need a projector, and what do you think the projector is? It's the mind. And it just like,
what's the film? Anything you put in your mind.
And like, it's crazier than normal. It's crazier than the average scene like that in any of these kind of books that we read, and definitely the craziest thing in this book. And I actually kind of liked it, so that was a high point for me.
I'll agree. It got pretty surreal. After a while, I started to realize I was reading like a 15-page extended metaphor that was groaning under its own weight. Yeah. And that gets a little apparent as it trucks along. But it was a unique idea and kind of a cool way to explain the nature of reality, which is what this book is all about. And that is my first low point. This is a book that has all the answers. And I guess that's kind of unsurprising to anyone who's read Jonathan Livingston Seagull or anything else Richard Bach has written since. Apparently, I haven't, but just from looking at his work, this is a man who has all the answers. And it's not really put forth in a way where it's like a playful narrative where these things are revealed. Even something like The Alchemist, I feel like, did a better job of kind of getting its point across within the context of parable and fun. This is literally 2 characters just kind of talking to each other about the author's thoughts.
I think if you were going to sum that up, you might say something like, Richard Bach tells, doesn't show. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I definitely feel that. And kind of building on that, the message itself is pretty bad. I just don't have any patience for this premise that he's got that nobody can harm you without your consent.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm not impressed by, first year logic student tricks where you debunk the golden rule by saying, what about a masochist, huh? Should a masochist treat everybody the way they want to be treated, huh? It's just, it's lazy and it's dull, and I'm not buying it.
Yeah,
so that was my big low point.
That is an actual argument that's made.
Yeah,
it's right after the Butch Cassidy, right after the Butch Cassidy part too. So it's a little disappointing. It goes from something kind of cool and surreal into something really obnoxious and like you kind of said, that first year philosophy student like doing a thought experiment with his drunk friends.
Yeah, and being your M. That's blowing your mind for busy people.
Dropping a truth bomb right down your mind shaft. Here on I Don't Even Own a Television.
Speaking of truth bombs and mind shafts, did you have another high point you wanted to drop on the people?
I did, actually, and it's just that there's one scene where a dude who is disabled shows up in a wheelchair, and it should be mentioned, these guys, both of these modern messiahs, make their living flying people around in biplanes. They just land in strange towns and take people on $3 biplane rides. So this guy shows up, and he's in a wheelchair, and he's paralyzed from a war. And when he gets near the biplane, suddenly he can walk, and like he gets flown around, and like when he comes back down, he's all like, "What did you do to me?" And like is kind of freaking out, but in a cool way.
Yeah.
And I got really emotional about that because that's it's a trope, but it's a trope that gets me every fucking time. Like the second episode of Lost is another good example. So
nice.
I don't know. So that part resonated with me, even though I know that it's probably just because of my predisposition to enjoying that particular narrative. I thought it was good. So
cool.
Yeah.
I think to follow that, there were moments of this book that actually had a sense of humor, which is really rare for this type of book. Like there's no moment of levity in The Alchemist. There's no moment of levity in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And in this, there's this kind of running gag where Richard, the narrator, is a really crappy cook and doesn't really understand that he's a crappy cook. And some of the jokes about that are actually pretty funny. And it's so rare that, I even chuckle reading one of these that maybe stood out a little bit more than it should have for me.
No, definitely. There's a part where he offers Jesus Don some pan bread that he made, and when he takes a bite, he's like, "Did you put the grass in there on purpose?"
Yeah.
He's like, "No, it fell out of my sleeve."
Right.
Yeah. There is a quality, and I'm gonna get shit on about this on the internet because I know how much people hate him, just judging how many recommendations we've gotten for his books for this show.
Right.
But I think there's a quality of kind of Tom Robbins here, in the same kind of like, I don't know, playful wannabe cowboy kind of stuff going on. And I enjoy that to an extent. I can't really deal with it when it gets as heavy-handed with the philosophy as this does. But I think that those moments of levity were fun and entertaining to read, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I should note that you texted me. We should have said this earlier, but you texted me probably 8 minutes into your reading of this book that this is Zen and the Art of Airplane Maintenance. And that's exactly right. That's what this book is.
It is.
We could fold up the tent right now.
Yeah, like, hey, it's maybe a good time to just stop talking and I can play like 10 rap songs I like.
Yeah.
With obscene lyrics, louder than the vocals of us talking.
Turn it up.
No, I do. That is pretty much where I come down on this. And I think people who haven't read it, which is I'd imagine the majority of people listening to this.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all you need to know. It's a much shorter, more condensed version of the philosophy of Zen and the Art and Motorcycle Maintenance, but without the kind of strange parental narrative and kind of more of just a everyone's Jesus if they want to be morality. That's a little dated and weird to read now.
Yeah, way lazier and way shorter with a tiny sense of humor. And if that sounds appealing to you, good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, it'll make you feel good about yourself, I guess.
It didn't work for me.
No, I don't know. Let's go to break, and we'll come back. We're going to talk some more about this book in more detail. I think there's some interesting stuff to examine about the characters for sure that we haven't really gone over. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Stick around.
I fly like catch me at the border, I got visas in my name. If you come around here, I'll make them all day. I get one down in a second if you wait. I fly like paper, get high like planes. If you catch me at the border, I got visas in my name. If you come around here, I'll make them all day. I get one down in a second if you wait. Sometimes I think sitting on trains.
Live, never to be ashamed if anything you do or say is published around the world, even if what is published is not true.
A cloud does not know why it moves in just such a direction and at such a speed.
Your friends will know you better in the first minute you meet than your acquaintances will know you in 1,000 years.
There is no such thing as a problem without a gift for you in its hands.
You're always free to change your mind and choose a different future or a different past. So, in case you're not getting what's happening here, we're reading some of the little inserts throughout the story here that are from the Messiah's Handbook, a book presented to our intrepid author / hero early by Don Jesus. What's his name? Last name?
Don Shimoda.
I keep thinking of Don Zientara, who is he produced a couple Jawbox albums and engineered some DC records back in the day.
Right.
But like maybe it's a cross between him and the rapping guy from Linkin Park.
Ooh, Mike Shinoda. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know that. But this guy doesn't know shit from Shimoda.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, so this is a bunch of advice. These are little, I don't know, little parables or whatever. But does it feel to you like it's all advice, like with this weird smirk on its face?
Yes.
Like it's you create your own reality, dude. Which is like one step away from saying, don't come to me with your problems because you made them all up or whatever.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, that's kind of the underlying thrust of the whole thing, really, when you get down to it, is that, like, our author is dead set on convincing you as the reader that anything wrong in your life is your own fault.
Right.
And it gets a little ugly at times, I think. I didn't... Ultimately, this is a book about a philosophy that I do not agree with, and,
Right.
and I do not find pleasant.
Yeah, it really kind of taints the small bits of pleasure that you can take from it. And we were sort of talking off air. You found this kind of a weed dad book because of some of that air, because of some of that advice. But I really felt like it needed a new category because it was so smirking and because it was so anti-work. You know,
Yeah.
and Don and Richard are both kind of younger men. There's no sense that they have a family. There's no sense that they've managed to accumulate that level of responsibility because they're just dicking around in biplanes all summer. So I wanted to call this something like Smug Zen.
Smug Zen.
Yeah.
I could see that,
You know?
but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that a lot of what's talked about in this book like isn't even really Zen. Like it's selfish to the point where it almost comes across like Anton LaVey at times and stuff. Like I have things highlighted here like you are never given a wish without also being given the power to make it true. Mm-hmm. Or the phrase is hurt somebody else. We choose ourselves to be hurt or not to be hurt, no matter what.
And there's this long part. I don't know if you've got it in front of you, but there's this long part about, do you really share the world with 5 billion people? What's important to you is working on your biplane. 5 billion people don't care about your biplane. Mm-hmm. You don't care about somebody in Hyderabad, India, you know, and it's this incredibly solipsistic and gross picture of the world.
I was just, while you were talking, I was going to say the word to describe this is solipsistic.
Yes!
And you got there for sure. Because it is. I mean, it's really a reinforcement of that kind of idea that you are the center of the universe. And,
Right.
and the world exists to cater to your whim. And it's a viewpoint that I feel like is kind of a dangerous one to adopt. Especially as an adult, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe reading this as a teenager, I would have felt a little, like, a more connection to kind of what the guy was saying. But the problem is that when Homeboy wrote this, he was not a teenager at all, you know.
No.
There's almost a Randian element to this kind of, like, you are what it's all about. And it's uncomfortable. I didn't like that.
It's true. And just on a sort of sentence level and a common sense level, the advice that's given isn't all that good or interesting. It's really funny to me because the first couple that you read, The thing about live never to be ashamed if something about you is published, whether or not it's true. I had that written down with what? Next to my notes, because I genuinely don't know what that's supposed to mean. The one that you read about your friends knowing you better than acquaintances, like my note on that was true, but who gives a shit? Like, what does that mean? Who cares?
The first one there is a fancy way of saying all publicity is good publicity. But I have no idea about the second. This one really stuck out to me too. When they're talking about just kind of the main parts of the philosophy. I forgot part 1. I didn't highlight it. But part 2. Everybody else is free to do whatever they feel like doing for a living. And like, dude... Like, that would be wonderful if that were the case, you know? But I feel like there's just such a huge disconnect between most people's reality and the reality of someone who is getting paid to write philosophical treatises about magical biplane pilots. Because, no, most people aren't free to do whatever they like for a living. I mean, they might be free to attempt it and die in destitution, or more likely, you know, have a day job and shit where they support their passion, like, while they're doing things that maybe they don't necessarily want to do. But that whole kind of dropout mentality just feels so dated nowadays in a way that it's like, it's uncomfortably idealistic.
I mean, so you've got on one hand this uncomfortable idealism, and then on the other hand, you've got this other part that really disturbs me. One of the things from the Messiah's handbook that comes up is, believe you know all answers, and you know all answers. And I know it finally clicked to me why that drives me so nuts. It's like this weird Messiah for middle-aged white guys clinging to power. And it bugs me so much because it's basically a rule against being curious. Yeah. And I just really feel like being curious and open and interested is, you know, one of the I'm going to be pretentious. It's one of the central human values that's most important to me. And a book like this is, in its smugness, the antithesis of that. And it just sits incredibly wrong with me. Yeah. Anyway, perhaps we could lighten things up a little bit.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
So over the course of this, and we touched on this, Donald Shimoda does magic. Right? He does a lot of little magic tricks through the course of the book.
Close work, you know, crowd work.
He explains a lot of things, to people. There's a scene that involves some creepy bad food. He levitates objects and insists that his disciples can do the same. He even levitates a 2-person aircraft at one point.
It's described in such detail that this aircraft could not possibly land in a runway of this size, and the runway was half that size, and he slowed down in such a way that the plane just looked like it was hovering, and then he landed, and it was not a big deal. And this is 5 pages of bullshit.
We should definitely note that the author is at great pains to say no, this is actually impressive. But it's deep in the weeds details that it's not impressive because I don't know anything about small aircraft.
But you know, the foreword is enlightening because you learn that prior to writing this book, the author was toiling around in biplanes. So in his mind, this is very exciting, and it makes me kind of almost wish that this had been like written after like maybe a 3-year binge of model train building, because that would have been even more hilarious if he met like a magical messiah character who was like a guy who had a crazy model train kit in his basement and wore one of those conductor hats.
The universe is a lot like model trains. Like, wait, what? Yeah, I can definitely see that. But let me finish this point.
Okay, sorry.
Those particular scenes and those particular acts of magic are exactly what Yoda does in Empire Strikes Back. So if you want to read this book and instead of imagining sexy karate Jesus, imagine a tiny big-eared green guy, feel free. I think that will improve your experience of this book.
It's magical in so many ways, though. Like, this book tries so hard for magical realism and fails so miserably.
It really does. There's this sense that you're supposed to be deeply amazed by what's going on. That, like, he's inspecting the guy's plane and there's, like, no dead bugs on it.
And he can fly without fuel.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's never any dirt on his passengers when they get in and out of the plane. Like, holy shit, man.
Yeah, this is not, I don't know. To me, this is not turning water into wine. To me, this is not multiplying the loaves and fishes. However, they do get to walk on water, so let's not downplay everything.
I was just going to say, but wait, Don Shinoda at one point does stroll out on some water and then swim through some land.
Yep.
He crawls on his belly like a reptile. And
what? Man, we're back to Biblecast. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it really is just two sort of aging hipster dudes who are super into their airplane hobby, hanging out and blowing each other's mind by the campfire a lot. That's most of this book's trim 100 and change pages, right?
I'm gonna let you in on how I read this book here, which is that like every time the chapters break, there's an advance of a couple hours or maybe a day or so. There's a time period in between. And so in my mind, during that time period is when our author was like eating the shit out of some more mushrooms.
Now, Jay, is this your picture of what the author was doing, or is this your description of what you were doing?
Yes. No, the author. I feel like if you kind of take this whole book and you recast it, like in the context of a hallucinogenic trip, it makes a lot of sense. I met this dude and he taught me how to make wrenches hover. That fucking happens. Wrenches hover on their own.
A lot.
Just whatever wrench you need just will pop up and levitate.
Yeah.
And I think it just makes more sense if you imagine that he was eating just handfuls of mushrooms.
I think you're right. There's a scene, like the walking on water and swimming through the earth scene. Shimoda says explicitly, hang on to this moment. You will come to doubt it in the future. Mm-hmm. Which I have, not to open the curtain too wide, I've definitely had thoughts like that when I was possibly excessively altered. Thought like, oh man, I've gotta hang on to this. I'm never gonna be able to recapture this moment.
I'm gonna be real. I'm not a huge hallucinogenics guy, but I did once try LSD when I was younger, and I didn't have a great experience. But I specifically remember smoking a cigarette and staring at the ashes as they burned down and thinking,
oh, yeah.
These towers we build around ourselves, how they crumble so easily. So that's this book. Anyway.
I need a minute. That's amazing.
Yep.
That's way more amazing than all the advice in this book, which keeps coming back to like, stop hitting yourself. Yeah. Stop hitting yourself.
Yeah. So I mean, though, is this an advice book, or is this just... I don't feel like this is an advice book. I feel like this is kind of more of like a check out what I know book. And I don't think that there's really anything given to you that's like, here's how to learn and progress through these teachings. It's just more like, hey, I'm a dude who figured shit out, and here's how I figured shit out. And here's the ongoing adventures of me figuring more minutia out.
I get that, but then there's all the stuff from the Messiah's Handbook, which I think is supposed to blow your mind. But like I said, it reads like somebody dashed off a first draft on a Post-it note and never got around to revising it.
Yeah, like high school poetry student just discovered Cummings, like, oh, look, if I indent things differently, it adds some emphasis.
Yeah.
There's an Ezra Pound-like quality without the racism. It's just like, it's very like over the top and, sentence fragment-y
and loops it back with stuff we've done recently, because there's stuff like, the best way to avoid responsibility is to say, I've got responsibilities. Which, okay, that's actually true, and that's helpful if you're kind of a middle manager type person, but it's not interesting.
It's also, it's a Stephen Wright joke or a Mitch Hedberg joke, but like without the pizzazz.
Yeah, without the funny.
Yeah, without the funny. But like it's that kind of dry witticism that I feel like it's what happens when like middle-aged white dudes try to write what they consider to be like Buddhist koans.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And it's here's a very, simplistic observation presented in a way that's just going to rattle you to your core. Yep. But it doesn't work when it comes off like a bad stand-up comedy, like, kind of tossed off Bill Hicks observation. And that's like what a lot of this book feels like, I think.
His third book, Women are different than men probably really would have blown our minds.
I'm a big fan of Richard Bach's recent comeback, White People Be Dancing Like This.
We haven't really touched on this, but one of the things that I think is interesting is just how mammoth Jonathan Livingston Seagull was. And I'm sure that this book sold huge numbers of copies just based on kind of that momentum and that name recognition, but was obviously nowhere near a phenomenon. Neither of us had heard of this book. I think we found it because I found a physical copy and thought it looked funny. But it's not like you can say Illusions, that Richard Bach book, and people know what you mean. Whereas even 40 years later, you can say Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and it does mean something.
People will roll their eyes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's got this weird, like, I had this elaborate thing about how, like, Jonathan Livingston Seagull was like Boston's first album, and this was like the tepid Boston follow-up, and so his third book must have been that shitty Boston album that came out in 1986 that had Amanda on it and nothing else. But I'll spare you and everybody else.
Would this be the starship to say
Jefferson
Seagull's airplane?
Yeah, exactly. This is Yes's 90215 or 90218 or whatever it is to early good Yes.
You know what I love about all those bands? They're from South Carolina.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back after a break.
Lord of mercy. I just wanna fly. Where you want? Put your arms around me, baby. Put your arms around me, baby. I just wanna fly. Where you want? Where you try? Where you want? Put your arms around me, baby. Put your arms around me, baby.
Welcome back to Illusions. The Confessions of a Reluctant Messiah? The Adventures.
Adventures. That's a good question. I would actually read Confessions of a Reluctant Messiah. But Jay, is this show just an illusion?
Everything is an illusion. Life is just a fantasy. Can you live a fantasy life?
Wow. I guess I have to, right? If that's what life is, then I guess I have to.
It is. Some Aldo Nova deep pull for you there.
Is this real life or just a fantasy?
I think it's time for us to play some games.
Instead of talking about classic rock.
Yeah, so we're going to start off with a classic game, Dramatic Readings.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
All right, so dramatic readings are segments of this book prepared for maximum impact. Would you like to lead us off?
I think I can do that. This is from the dramatic death scene of Donald Shimoda. He didn't move, except just his head a little bit, and suddenly I was scared again. More by his stillness than by the mess and the blood. I didn't think you had enemies. I don't. That was a friend. Better not to have some hater bring all sorts of trouble into his life, murdering me. The seat and the side panels of the cockpit were running with blood. It would be a big job just to get the travel air clean again, although the airplane itself wasn't damaged badly. Did this have to happen, Don? No, he said faintly, barely breathing. But I think I like the drama.
Haters.
Haters and drama, man. Nothing but haters and drama. 70s style.
Yeah. Wow. That's like one of those t-shirts that's like, haters, I've got a message for you with a middle finger.
Yeah, exactly. You mean the shirt I'm wearing right now?
Yeah. Well, that one's pretty good because mine says, oh, you mad because I'm styling on you.
And under that t-shirt, I happen to know that Jay is wearing another t-shirt that just reads, I heart haters.
That's true. I do. I heart them so much that I went down to the pier
Yeah.
and got a shirt custom made with an airbrush.
I don't know why it's an anatomical heart, but maybe we can talk about that next episode. Stay tuned.
I'm literal. Okay, so my dramatic reading occurs during the viewing of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, hereby reinforcing the notion that our hero and his buddy Don are really fucking annoying.
Wait, these guys are talking during the movie?
Oh yeah, they're arguing about philosophy during a movie. So here goes. Richard, yeah. Why are you here? It's a good movie, Don. Shh. Butch and Sundance, blood all over them, were talking about why they ought to go to Australia. Why is it good? He said. It's fun. Shh. I'll tell you later. Snap out of it. Wake up. It's all illusions. I was irked. Donald, there's just a few minutes more, and then we can talk all you want. But let me watch the movie, okay? He whispered intensely, dramatically. Richard, why are you here? Look, I'm here because you asked me to come in here. I turned back and tried to watch the end. You didn't have to come. You could have said no thank you. I like the movie. A man in front turned to look at me for a second. I like the movie, Don. Is there anything wrong with that? Nothing at all, he said, and he didn't say another word until it was over and we were walking again past the used tractor lot and out into the dark towards the field and the airplanes. It would be raining before long.
If your Messiah preaches the gospel that since all life is an illusion, it's okay to talk during a movie, fuck your religion and fuck your Messiah.
Seriously, that is just some assholic behavior I was 100% not on board with.
I am bright red right now. I am mad online over this.
Don, I like the movie. It should be noted, too, that is in all caps. Like, I tried to emphasize it as much as I could with my voice, but Don, I like the movie is in all caps.
Right.
So.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, one of the most awkward dates I think we've ever read in a book on this.
Let's move on to another game here. This is World's Most Famous Fan.
The rich and the famous, but they read books too. The rich and the famous, but they're only a little better than you.
All right, so World's Most Famous Fan, we try to tease out who the most famous person would be that is an avid fan of this book without cheating.
Right.
So I haven't done any sort of research. So this may or may not be true. Feel free to correct us at will. Would you like to go first or should I?
It's up to you. I'm ready to go.
Okay, you go.
So, this is a book where life is an illusion. You can kind of pick your future. You can pick your past. You can pick your identity. So, you know, you strap in and it's a world of pure imagination, right? Which made me kind of lean toward Willy Wonka, perhaps being the most famous fan of this book. But then I realized you spend a lot of time in biplanes in this book. So, to me, the most famous fan of this book is 100% Snoopy.
Well, see, you came really close to what I was thinking, and then you veered hard to the right.
And what did you have?
Well, you were talking about kind of the fluidity of being, right? And then you were talking about kind of a love of biplanes and stuff. And my first thought was actually the Wachowskis.
Whoa.
Because I had just watched Sense8 on Netflix, which I probably would not recommend. I found it very corny in a lot of ways. But a lot of the ideas behind it were this mix of like kind of steampunk and the fluidity of identity. And in a way, just it resonated. I thought, you know what? I bet that they fucking read this at some point, and it was definitely an influence on the Sense8 show. So that's where I was coming from with this. Feel free to yell at me if you think I'm wrong.
That actually reminds me of something that I wanted to touch on earlier that we didn't get to. There's a scene where Don is explaining he can do magic because nothing is real and it's all illusions. And it made me flash back to the scene in The Matrix where, you know, there's all the little guru kids being groomed, basically for Neo's spot. And there's one little bald kid who's making this spoon do magic tricks. And he looks at him and he's got this little English accent and he's like, "Do you wonder how I can bend the spoon? The truth is, there is no spoon." And I remember watching it, and I'll be honest, I loved The Matrix when it came out.
Oh, yeah.
My mind was blown.
I am what might be referred to as a Wachowski apologist. Like, I will go to bat for Jupiter Ascending. I thought it was really fun. I love Speed Racer.
Okay.
Like, I think that they have some great ideas, but I saw a lot of them in this book. So.
Definitely. But all I wanted to say is that I always really wanted "there is no spoon" to be a catchphrase, and it wasn't. Like the moment when like Neo's been getting his ass kicked and then he like shoves himself up, I really wanted him to mutter himself to himself to like psych himself up and get in touch with his powers, like "there is no spoon." Like that would have really made the movie for me.
It's a missed opportunity. I'm gonna go way off topic here just to talk about missed opportunities, because I have this theory,
Okay.
and I've mentioned this on the internet a bunch, like in 40 tweet sprees, but it never seems to get across. Terminator 2, right?
I'm with you.
There's a scene in Terminator 2 where Ed Furlong and the Terminator are riding around through some culverts in Los Angeles and having conversations, and he's teaching him cool things to say in English. And he teaches him, that's the scene where he learns "Hasta la vista, baby."
Right.
He learns some other stuff. The big kind of focus of that scene is him teaching him the words "chill out, dickhead."
Right.
And Terminator Arnold goes, "Chill out, dickhead." And it's like really great. And so like towards the end of the movie, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. What does Arnold say?
"Chill out, dickhead."
Oh, thank
but so in the climax of the movie, when the evil Terminator has become like molten metal, there's a part where he gets frozen by nitrogen, gets blown up, and fucking Arnold says, "Hasta la vista, baby." And missed opportunity, right? Like, I feel like that's either intentionally done because it wasn't marketable and they wanted to be able to put the slogan on a Taco Bell cup,
Right.
or somebody just dropped the ball. But how the fuck are you going to teach a dude to say "chill out, dickhead," and then freeze a guy later in the movie and not call back to "chill out, dickhead"? I just wanted to point that out.
I think that you're not wrong, and I think that the entire premise of Batman and Robin was let's redress that wrong by letting Arnold Schwarzenegger say nothing but cold-related puns for an hour.
That's true. Maybe they were making up for it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Arnold's decision. Like, look, I know I really let my fans down
Guys, I wrote this script. It has a lot of jokes.
about cold.
Yeah. I hope that you like it.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so most famous fan, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think it's settled.
Wait, you're saying Arnold is more famous than Snoopy?
Yeah.
All right.
How many evil robots has Snoopy killed?
7.
How many states has he governed?
2.
All right, moving on. I believe you have a game prepared.
I do. I have a little thing called "What is your fave?"
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
All right, so what is your fave is what it sounds like. Hey, what's our favorite thing?
So when presented, Jay, with a list of other reluctant messiahs, who would be your favorite from the following list? Richard Bach, author, aviator, and outdoor cooking enthusiast. Sebastian Bach, Canadian television personality and fan of Guns N' Roses.
And star of Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway for several years,
That's
which
true.
kind of, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that adds to his Messiah credentials.
Definitely. But we're not done yet. Richard Bachman, Stephen King pen name, responsible for 2.25 good books, which is to say 0.75 more good books than Stephen King himself. Randy Bachman, another Canadian musician, responsible for half a dozen good songs and the 70s trend of wearing pajamas on stage. Or Johann Sebastian Bach, a German musician from South Carolina, known for such works as Riding the Valkyries and some other songs used as entrance music for professional wrestlers.
Okay, I'm going to head this off at the pass right now. Ride of the Valkyrie is Wagner, not Bach, so don't write in.
Yes, that and if you did want to write in, let me just help Jay head you off the pass. Yes, That was the joke. That
Yeah.
was literally the joke.
Okay. Sorry. Oh my God. Did I ruin everything?
No,
I'm just-
no. I just want to help you head people off of the path.
I'm so sensitive about this stuff now.
Well, also it's called Ride of the Valkyries, not Riding the Valkyrie.
Good point.
So I was really just
I
trying
believe
to be,
that's an issue of heavy metal. For me, I'm gonna go with Bachman, the Stephen King.
Really?
Yes, because Running Man is awesome.
I don't disagree. I really thought you were gonna go Sebastian Bach, though. I'm surprised.
Well, while it is important for us to recognize the plight of the 18-year-olds trapped in the criminal justice system being tried as adults, after you fire a shotgun into the wind, sometimes a child can blow a child away. It's important to recognize the realities of these facts and not to hold it against the underage perpetrators who are just caught up in a system that's bigger than them.
Right.
It's 18 and life to go, man.
That's a fact. And I do just want to say that the only Skid Row fan I ever knew in person was a guy who really liked to play the 2 hits for flinching game.
Skid Row, it was either their guitar player or their bass player, Rachel Bolan, was the first person I ever saw with a nose ring and an earring and a nipple ring that were all connected by chains.
Whoa, doing I think it was Nana Cherry, One Better.
Yeah. It was intense. Looked
That is
painful.
intense. Yeah. That that's it for that game.
Speaking of Skid Row, a group known to get a little aggressive. Here's a super aggressive theme for a game called Russian Roulette.
Russian roulette, not actually Russian.
We are the youth gone wild! All right. Russian Roulette is a game about Skid Row. Not really. But we are going to randomly pick pieces from this book and read them to you so you can discover how batshit insane every single page is. Would you like to go first, or should I go first?
It's up to you.
Okay, you go first. I will pick a random number for you between 1 and 1522, which are the locations in the book. The random number I picked is 236.
Got it.
Go.
I sat high on the top cowling of the fleet and considered my strange friend. Toss me a 9/16, would you please, Don? He hunted in the tool bag and pitched the wrench up to me. As with the other tools that morning, the one he threw slowed and stopped within a foot of me, floating weightless, turning lazy in midair. The moment I touched it, though, it went heavy in my hand. An everyday chrome vanadium aircraft end wrench. Well, not quite every day. Ever since a cheap 7/8 broke in my hand, I've bought the best tools a man can have.
Of course.
This one happened to be a snap-on, which, as any mechanic knows, is not your everyday wrench. Might as well be made of gold, the price of the thing, but it's a joy in the hand, and you know it will never break, no matter what you do with it.
And it's got the calendars with the sexy ladies.
Man, yeah, so once again, that moment when I was like, yeah, I don't know if this is totally a weed dad book. Okay, this is a dad book. I'm wrong. Fine.
Yeah, he's waxing poetic about the virtues of snap-on tools, known primarily for their bikini calendars and high-quality build craftsmanship and whatnot. So, yeah.
Brought to you by Snap-on. It's illusions.
Snap-on, the tools you can masturbate to.
Good God.
And I need a location between 1 and 1522. Hit me up.
69, that's the weed note. No.
Nice, we're going with that.
Oh, no.
It was towards the middle of the summer that I met Donald Shimoda. In 4 years flying, I never found another pilot in the line of work I do. Flying with the wind from town to town, selling rides in an old biplane, $3 for 10 minutes in the air. But one day just north of Ferris, Illinois, I looked down from the cockpit on my fleet, and there was a Travel Air 4000 gold and white. Landed pretty as you please in the lemon emerald hay. Mine's a free life, but it does get lonely sometimes. I saw the biplane there, thought about it for a few seconds, and decided it would be no harm to drop in. Throttle back to idle, a full rudder slip, and the fleet and I fell sideways towards the ground. With the flying wires, that gentle good sound, the slow pop, pop, pop of the old engine loafing its propeller around. Goggles up to better watch the landing. Corn stalks, a green leaf jungle swishing close below, flicker of a fence, and then just cut hay as far as I could see. Stick and rudder out the slip, a nice little round out above the land, hay brushing the tires, and the familiar calm crushing rattle of hard ground under wheel, slowing, and now a quick burst of noise and power to taxi beside the other plane and stop. Throttle back, switch off to the soft clack clack of the propeller spinning down to stop in the total quiet of July.
Wow. I really like the early 80s young guy narrating the very beginning of his movie vibe you brought to that. Really changed up what I thought of that character.
See, I was really going for Prairie Home Companion, but I missed the mark.
We gotta go. I mean, for Prairie Home, I think you gotta go like slip the throttle back.
That's true. Need to sound like you've just smoked 3 pipes and you're about to fall asleep.
The soft pop pop and the familiar columns cracking underneath.
For a true Garrison Keillor, you need an undercurrent of like undefined rage that's about to burst through the surface at any second. Oh my God! Speaking of which, it's probably time for us to go to a break. So I've got important things to say about Guy's shoe band review.
Oh dear!
And you and me are gonna have at it. Stick around, folks.
'Cause now you got to fly. Not to the hatred. Heaven awaits your heart. And flowers bloom in your name. Whoa, whoa, you got to fly. Not to the hatred. All the stars in the night shine your name.
All right, welcome back. This is I Don't Even Own a Television. We've been talking about bad books, and this one in particular was pretty good. It was Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah by Richard Bach.
Reluctant Messiah.
Yeah. Shit makes me want to yarl.
It definitely does. I was saying off air, like maybe a high point for this god awful book for me was that I did read most of it with the Metallica song "Leper Messiah" in the back of my head, so that was helpful.
I was thinking maybe Collective Soul, like that. Somebody loop that, please. I'm always the one looping it, but someone at home loop that. Make that into a fucking dope track, a remix of Collective Soul.
Heck yeah, I'm ready for it. I hope that you're all ready for it.
One thing I'm ready for is that we've been talking about this book that is not that good, and it's probably time to recommend some things that are better. So why don't you go ahead and start us off? Okay. Let the listeners at home know about some things that aren't awful.
Here's a good thing. It is an interesting comic book collected in graphic novel form at this point, or trade paperback form, called Omega, and it is by a woman named Mary Skrenes, or Skrenes, Skrenes, co-written with oh god, no, I'm spacing his name because I am the world's stupidest human. Anyway, it's called Omega the Unknown. It is a great collection. It's by Mary Skrenes, and it's very 70s. It's very weird. It's very cold. It's very off-putting. It's sort of a thought experiment about what if Superman were as fucked up as Peter Parker. And it's by no means a fun read, but it's a really interesting read, and I couldn't recommend it more.
Speaking of by no means a fun read, I actually went back and I was really surprised I hadn't recommended this before because I read it a while ago. And it's John Darnielle, a.k.a. The Mountain Goats, wrote a book called Wolf in White Van, and it's a novel. It's about a fellow who runs a turn-by-turn adventure game, RPG, through the mail, and just kind of the weird falling out when some of his players get themselves into an extreme situation, and it's a really interesting examination of an incredibly lonely character, and it stuck with me for a really long time. So I'd really recommend reading that if you haven't already. Just be forewarned going in, it's not going to make you feel good. So
I remember when you were reading that, I feel like it kind of put the whammy on you for a bit.
It did.
So be prepared. And
Yeah.
and this will do the same. Something about the combination. They co-wrote a lot. It's Mary Screens and Steve Gerber. They co-wrote a lot, and all the stuff they co-wrote is just really sad making. So,
Yeah.
be ready for that. But
I think sometimes there's a time and a place for that, though. Sometimes you want to read something that's really going to kind of to get to you in that way and just kind of grab at your heart and make you feel. And I think both of these are probably good examples of that for sure.
definitely. So we've got a few other things that we can chat about. One is that if you like having the top half of your body covered, which is certainly a recommendation that I would offer most people, please cover the top half of your body.
Yeah.
You can go to teespring.com, teespring.com, IDEOTV-shirt, and you can have your pick of branded t-shirts for only a very, very short time.
That's true.
So-
If you're listening to this like 2 weeks after this podcast comes out, it's too late.
It's
you
too
got to
late.
do it fast.
Get on it and get it on you. And let the world know that you really like on your chest a terrifying devil book with awesome horns and a tail.
Which one or both of us may soon have a tattoo of, depending on how crazy we're feeling.
Which we will be unveiling at our live show in just a few weeks, right here in beautiful San Francisco, California, at the Stage Werx Theater. That's WERX, right here in the beautiful Mission District, a stone's throw from 16th Street BART. Stone's throw from every decent restaurant and 2/3 of the good bars in this city.
It's true.
You literally have no reason not to come see us perform for you.
February the 21st at 3 p.m. We're going to be doing this in the afternoon, but it's cool because we'll be 2 blocks away from a really cool bar with some hamburgers and an open air fucking patio where you can go and drink and even smoke cigarettes if that's your thing.
There's like a taco truck that's always posted up right there.
Yeah. So we're going to do this show. We're going to have some fun afterwards. February the 21st, 3 p.m., Stage Werx. Be there. All right, so it's also probably important for us to read some letters from our listeners. So here's a song about reading letters from listeners.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter F, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
All right, that song is so good.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just thinking about a possible different song, which would be sort of indebted to what I know is our favorite band. It's the band that we both together like the most, and it would be something like, all day we get letters about books, all day get letters about books. Anyway, sorry.
Nope.
This one is from Hayden, no last name, and it goes like this. Hello!
Hi.
As much as people seem to love Asimov and his Foundation series, there was one thing about it that drove me up the wall. The young Asimov loved the word sardonic, and especially liked describing characters as doing something sardonically. Why is it that no one seems to have talked about this? Maybe it was a point of contention back when Asimov was actively writing, but I wasn't alive then! There are 7 instances of the word in the first book alone. What are some examples of an overused word or words that one of your favorite authors indulged in? Sardonically, Hayden. That's a pretty good question.
That's a good one.
The favorite authors makes it a little harder. I remember back in the Shadow Moon episode, I theorized that the word asperity was always a flag of a shitty writer who was slightly over their head.
Yeah.
And like indulging perhaps in a bit of thesaurus abuse. It's hard to identify a word that I see a favorite using that I think is funny. Also in that episode, I mentioned, though, that, China Mieville, who I do really, really like, uses this French word that I'm going to butcher, puissance, to mean, like, power, like magic, good power. So that might be kind of a word that he's kind of claimed, like nobody else can use that the way he uses it. So that might be an example of that.
I'm having a tough time also narrowing it down to one author, but I'd say chitinous.
Oh,
Chitinous plates.
Oh, yeah.
Like, whether you're describing a military of men with complicated plate mail, or an insect. Chitinous just like seems to pop up all the time in these fantasy sort of worlds. Chitinous plates, a chitinous fucking carapace, you know. So yeah, that's one for me for sure.
Yeah, and if you're kind of a bookish kid and reading that kind of book, and maybe you don't have a lot of people around you to talk to, you may, as I did for some 20 years, think that word is chitin.
Oh yeah, me too. I definitely did.
Yeah. Also, that ancient plant form lichen.
Oh, not the licking.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good question. People should write in and actually answer that question for us, because that would also be helpful. And here is another letter from Jane, no last name, entitled "Here is a letter from Not a Dude."
Yay!
Which I asked for specifically, but thank you. Ahoy hoy, IDEO TV gents.
From me, Monty Bird.
Two things. One, through a complicated series of events, one of your episodes reminded me of the band Animal Chin, who I had not thought of in probably almost a decade. That was sweet. Thank you for that. Jay's laughing. That was completely over my head, but hey, whatever. Two, I would very much enjoy hearing you give Kerouac the I don't even own a television treatment.
Oof.
Maybe not on the road. I mean, I'm here for it, but it is one of those significant dude books that men tend to get fussy about. Side note, that I guarantee that only makes me want to do it more. Unless you really want your Twitter mentions to turn into a garbage fire. But if memory serves, there's a lot of other material, casual misogyny, cultural appropriation, teabag philosophy to work with there. Oh, Dharma bums.
I was just going to say Dharma bums.
How meaningful you seemed when I was a lass of 14, and how terrible you turned out to be when I reread you at 24. That's pretty funny. I feel like On the Road is kind of a shadow for us in a way, because for me, it is one of the only books, it may be literally the only book that I ever just flat out quit reading because I hated it so much. I just got to a point where I was like, fuck this. And as some listeners know, another shadow that hangs over us is the Hold Steady.
Yeah.
Who are basically a Kerouac J.O. tribute act.
Yeah. We mentioned Richard Bachman earlier.
Yeah.
Bachman Turner Overdrive if the singer just kind of recited some Kerouac lyrics. We're going to get so much hate mail, but that's totally what it is. It's like if you took You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, but then you replaced it like all of the lyrics with a guy kind of monotoning some stuff about his blue collar existence. That's the Hold Steady for the uninitiated.
Yeah.
Ooh, hate me now.
Yeah. Boring philosophy over boring classic rock. Great. But yeah, I think that the single thing for me for that was the Hold Steady lyric, like, sometimes I think Sal Paradise was right. Boys and girls in America have such a sad time together. That line immediately follows Sal Paradise forcing his underage girlfriend to have sex with him, and it's bad sex and neither of them enjoy it. So that's what that line is about. That's what that band is about, and fuck them both.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to do On the Road.
Yeah.
Great suggestion.
Sounds great.
Except now, this time I guess I would have to finish it. Anyway, that would suck.
Yeah. Not one of my favorite things that I plowed through in the name of getting literate.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure that Kerouac wrote decent books aside from that, but that one really captured the sense of being locked in a car with assholes who won't shut up.
Exactly.
And that's not a great sense. Can we please stop? Can we please stop? Can we please listen to the radio for a while?
Somebody let me out.
Yeah.
There's got to be a trucker who just wants to listen to Night Moves over and over again and not talk. Yeah.
Now I want to listen to Night Moves and not talk.
So is that it for letters?
I think that's it for letters.
All right, well, if you have a letter at home and you want us to read it, give us a email at idon'tevenowntelevision@gmail.com. We will definitely read it. You might hear it online. You can also join the conversation at IDEOTV Pod on Twitter and Facebook, or go on Facebook and search for the I Don't Even Own a Television Fun Time Party Pit.
Party Pit.
The unfortunately named, but fortunately radical group of people who talk about the show, and also just have cool conversations about books, so check that out too.
Definitely.
And yeah, so thank you for listening. We will be back soon, and until then, keep reading crap.
Way out in London Airport and hangar number 4, a lonely little biplane left whose name was Evermore. His working days were over, no more would he sail. Upon his wings above the clouds, flying the Royal Mail.
Bye, bye, biplane, once upon a sky train. Bye, bye, hush-a-bye, lullaby.